Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode of Into the Hive Mind. This is another detachment video of the new 10th edition Tyranid Codex. We've got a whole bunch of awesome detachments, and today we're going to be talking about the Unending Swarm. This detachment is basically the second phase of the Tyranid invasion right after the Vanguard Onslaught, where your whole point is to throw more bodies than the enemy has bullets and just try to completely overwhelm your defending force. This detachment's incredible. I legitimately see this one winning GTs. It's not the most fun and engaging army to play, but or at least it didn't used to be. I don't know. Some of the new abilities of this detachment make it where you're at least moving all the time. So let's get into this. Let's talk about what the Unending Swarm is. Obviously, it's all about your endless multitude units. So the Unending Swarm detachment ability is after an opponent makes a shooting attack against you. Importantly, this is just shooting attack. So this could be Overwatch. This could be obviously regular shooting, but after an opponent makes a shooting attack against you and destroys at least one model, this unit can move D6 inches directly towards that unit. Or, sorry, directly towards the closest enemy unit. Few notable things here. It does not specify once per phase. So if your opponent shoots a unit, kills a model, you get to move D6 inches closer. Another unit shoots you, kills 3 models. You get to move D6 inches closer. Rinse and repeat until they stop shooting you. Or the cool thing about this is it does specify you can end in engagement range. So if they shoot you enough times, you're just going to keep going until you tie them up in combat. Tons of out of phase movement that you can get from this. And other important things to note is the unit needs to end closer to the closest enemy in a direct line. So what that means, because of the way 10th edition is played, is your unit has to end closer, and units are measured on a model-to-model basis by the closest models. So your closest model needs to move in a straight line to get towards their closest model, and the rest of your guys, at least for now, unless they FAQ it, can really go wherever they want because your unit moved in a direct line towards the closest enemy. We'll see if that's how it stays, but yeah, that's obviously super good because basically you can just move the one model to meet that requirement and move everyone else however you would like. Absolutely incredible. This does only work on your Endless Multitude units, so that is obviously your Termagaunts, Hormagaunts, Gargoyles, and Neurogaunts. They do already have that keyword even in the index. But yeah, that's your detachment ability. So nothing for the rest of the index, just those 4 units. But that's what the Unending Swarm is your Endless Multitude units. So let's talk about our enhancements. I'll just precursor this with the enhancements for this detachment are pretty crappy. And that's because Tyranids don't really have leaders that join units. So as far as anything that's going to affect our Endless Multitude units, we only have a Winged Tyranid Prime who can join Gargoyles and a Neuro Tyrant who can join Neurogaunts. Nothing can join Termagaunts, nothing can join Hormagaunts. So that makes most of these pretty lackluster. So the first one, enhancement, you've got Relentless Hunger. It's 20 points and it gives the bearer's unit plus 2 inches to their move characteristic. That's really good. Would be fantastic on Hormagaunts. Can't take it on Hormagaunts. You can take it on a Winged Tyranid Prime and attach them to a unit of Gargoyles, and those guys move 14 inches, plus an advance roll, plus a shoot, because their pistols are assault, and then plus the 6-inch move. You can literally fly all over the place on the table with this. But yeah, that's kind of, it's that, or you attach it to like a Flyrant and he gets a plus 2 move because it's just the bearer's unit. So you could just give it to a character and give him plus 2-inch move. Next up is Naturalized Camouflage. This is a weird one where in the beginning of the first battle round, select 3 Endless Multitude units within 9 inches of the bearer, and they get the benefits of cover until the end of the battle round. So this is fine. But if you're running a swarm, you should have Venomthropes. So you should have cover anyways. Yeah, I don't know. It's great for if you're running, I guess, all your Hormagaunts, give them cover, super torpedo launch them right at the opponent's face turn 1 if you want to do that. That's kind of the only use for it I can see. Next up, you've got Piercing Talons. This gives the bearer's unit +1 AP on critical wounds. Again, would be phenomenal on Hormagaunts. Can't take it. Honestly, the only thing I could see this being useful on would be on a Tyranid Prime joining a unit of warriors, or maybe a Broodlord joining a unit of Gene Stealers. But the Broodlord joining a unit of Gene Stealers makes him dev wounds, so that doesn't matter anyways. So no, literally a Tyranid Prime joining a unit of warriors is kind of the only use for this enhancement I could see. Next up, you've got the Bearer's unit gets an additional 3 inches on their pile-ins and consolidates. This is fine. It's extra movement, and that's what this whole list is all about. So that's probably the most useful one, but still honestly kind of a miss in my book. But that's fine. Our enhancements don't have to be good because our stratagems are incredible. Every single one of these 6 stratagems are very useful. You're going to want to have a lot of CP in this army. So let's talk about the stratagems. You've got, first off, Synaptic Goading. So this is for 1 CP, and after rolling your D6 Surge move, you then spend this strat, and you are allowed to re-roll if you want to, if you didn't get what you want. But more importantly, you can choose to have your unit move directly towards an objective marker rather than the closest enemy unit. I don't think it specifies the closest objective marker, which means there should be 5 objectives on the table in most games. Pick whichever one lets you move the direction you want to move, including your home one if you just need to move behind a wall. Yeah, this seems super good. It gives you control with where your units are going. So you can just CP that, have a Hive Tyrant free CP, do it on a second unit, and you just get to go wherever you want. Next up, 2 CP, Unending Waves. Hey, look, we're the guard now. 2 CP in any phase immediately after the last model from an Endless Multitude unit has been destroyed. Make a full strength copy of that unit, put it in reserves. 2 CP is definitely expensive, and especially because you can't free strat this one because they're no longer on the table, so they're not going to be within 12 inches. But yeah, just make sure you have 2 CP in your opponent's turn, and you get to bring a 20-man unit back at full strength in reserve. Incredible for this Unending Swarm. After that, we got 1 CP, Teeming Masses. This is just 1 CP, make your unit -1 to hit when it's targeted by an attack, either melee or shooting. This is fantastic because you're already -1 to hit from the Venomthropes, but this gives us a -1 to hit in melee. So if we end up fighting Custodes or, just basically a unit that has 36 attacks that hit on 3s, like our Von Ryans, if you're like in a Tyranid mirror match and you have 6 Von Ryans punching a 20-man unit, you spend 1 CP and suddenly they're hitting on 4s and they're probably only killing 10 Gaunts instead of 16. Yeah, seems really good. Awesome ability to just have in your pocket, because in this, all you really need is a couple Gaunts to live in every fight, right? Then you've got your 1 CP Swarming Masses. This is your offensive stratagem. Before shooting or fighting, you pick a unit and they gain Sustained Hits 1. And if the unit has 15 or more models, they critically hit on 5s. Now, this doesn't just trigger sustained hits if your unit has sustained or lethal hits, which I think the only way to get that is a Tervigon next to Termagaunts. But The Tervigon gives lethal hits, and those can crit on 5s if your unit is 15 or more and you pop this strat. That seems really good to me. You spend 1 CP on a Termagant unit within 6 of a Tervigon, and suddenly they have sustained hits 1 and lethal hits on 5+. Seems incredibly good. Next up, 1 CP, Bounding Advance. Flat, auto advance 6, don't roll. Obviously great. Movement is going to be the key of how you play this army. If you ever need to just ensure that you're moving that flat 6, you've got it. And it also gives your Hormagaunts a guaranteed threat range where they're moving 16 inches and can charge, so your opponent has to be aware of that at all times. But also anything else that you just, hey, I have to roll a 6 in order to get to this location to do the secondary. Okay, 1 CP. There you go. You're there. All right, and final strat. This is my favorite and what makes the list possible. Preservation Imperative. After your opponent has declared targets for their attacks, you spend a CP, and the unit that you target counts as having less than 5 models for the purposes of blast. Basically, this is 1 CP, remove blast. And that's insanely good for this kind of archetype. Basically, it was the one weakness of playing an army like this, is if your opponent just has Desolation Marines or any other heavy blast weapons. For example, this is literally against a squad of 10 Desolation Marines. This is spend 1 CP, make your opponent miss 40 of their shots. Just to give you an idea of how absurd that really could be. Obviously, that's worst case scenario, but yeah, that's the worst case scenario, which is what would otherwise obliterate your army. Now you just have a 1 CP strat to say, no, you have to get through all 150 of my Gaunts the hard way. And by the way, I can bring them back after you do that for 2 more CP. So yeah, this basically the way this detachment plays is you just have buckets and buckets of Gaunts. You can bring them back. You are just stealing primary, obviously, because all of your Endless Multitude units, aside from Neurogaunts, are OC2. You've got movement shenanigans everywhere. Everything they shoot is going to be moving closer to them. You're just going to drown your opponent in hordes of Gaunts the way Tyranids are supposed to play the game. I'm so happy, very excited to see that this is actually getting just a solid style fully dedicated to them. It's no longer a meme pick. I legitimately think this is going to play very well in GTs. So if you get the movement strategies down, there's just nothing your opponent can do about it, and you become a gatekeeper army. It's just, can your opponent deal with this? And you probably just tech in what few pieces you need to keep your Gaunts alive as long as possible, and that's really all you're focusing. You're not trying to kill at all here. I guess if you could go kind of, I don't want to say half measure, but if you wanted to only take 80 Gaunts in this detachment and still play kind of a normal Tyranid list, you absolutely can, and still be able to deal damage to your opponent, and then just bring those 80 Gaunts back when the opponent kills them. That's entirely viable. Personally, for me, the whole point of playing this is so I can throw 200 Gaunts on the table and laugh as they just are everywhere and literally drown their opponent. But with that, I do have a list for you guys. I'll throw the list down in the comments so you guys can see it. But with our Unending Swarm, essentially we're trying to take as many Gaunts as possible. So we have 6 units of 20 Termagaunts. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I have found Spinefists to be the vastly superior choice for Termagaunts. Once we're at the point of taking 120 Termagaunts, I don't know if I want all of them to be Spinefists, or maybe only 60 of them, which are the front 3 units, and the other 60 to have Devourers, so they can, shoot from the second rank. That's probably the way to go. Plus, then you don't have to convert 120 Spinefist models if your opponents or tournament organizers are crazy like that. But yeah, 6 units of 20 Spinefist Gaunts, or 30 and 30 of Spinefists and Devourers. And because we're doing this, I know we said we're not going for damage, but with that, I think you are actually taking a Tervigon. This is not for the replenishment of Gaunts, although that is nice. You're taking it for lethal hits. Spinefist Gaunts with lethal hits, especially if they can critically hit on 5s, are crazy good, because you have a 20-man unit. You get to advance forward. Their assault, assuming you're in range, you have 40 shots. Of those 40 shots, a third of them are going to explode and lethal hit, and then they're twin linked. So then, yeah, you're probably wounding on 6s, but you get 2 attempts to roll 6s, which is just as good as needing to roll 5s. The math in my mind just means Spinefists are better in every situation. Even against like Teeth 4, where you're wounding on 5s and Fleshborers would wound on 3s, you're getting the extra shot and you get the reroll, which still I think comes out on top. Anyways, so yeah, tons of Spinefist Gaunts. These guys are going to be your core, because in addition to all of your normal movement shenanigans, Termagaunts have their own datasheet movement shenanigan. When your opponent moves within 9 inches of you, you get to move d6. Now, depending on if your opponent is a shooting army or a combat army, you either run towards them or away from them. Because if they're shooting, you move towards them, and then if they shoot you, you just get to move towards them again, and you have a very real chance of just immediately getting into engagement range of them. If they're a combat army, you run away and just say, no, your charge is that much harder. Yeah, you've got options, and that's what makes this list so powerful. But anyways, getting back to the list, we got 6 units of 20 Termagaunts. We've got a Tervigon to give them the lethal hits. I literally think you just park this Tervigon behind a wall and then put your army in front of it within 6-inch range. You tail back to it. And then in addition to that, you've got obviously your 2 units of 3 Venomthropes. You're tailing back to these guys as well. Give all of your Gaunts stealth and cover. That basically doubles their durability, making your opponent -1 to hit and improving your save by 1. Massive. For 140 points, that's 20 Hormagaunts. You can have 6 Venomthropes that basically doubles the durability of your entire army. Then we've got 20 Hormagaunts. This is probably the unit that I would recycle all the time. Turn 1, throw them right at the opponent's face, say, deal with this. And then that's the one they have to kill. Cool. Spend 2 CP, bring them back, put them in reserve, outflank them, charge again. Say, deal with this. And you just rinse and repeat every single turn. They are going to have 20 Hormagaunts right at 9 inches away if they fail their charge, and they have to deal with it. Otherwise, that's just going to tie up their entire army. So only a single unit, but single unit of 20 Hormagaunts. Then you have 2 units of 10 Gargoyles. These are your guys that are just here to do your actions, or if you need to just be somewhere to screen out or whatever, they're the most mobile. And they're only 10 mans because if for some reason you need to deep strike and do actions, spend your 2 CP, bring this unit back. They get to deep strike because they go into reserve and they have the deep strike capability. But yeah, these are your flex piece. Just go where you need them to go, be able to do what you need them to do, because they're moving 12 inches plus an advance plus potentially another 6 inches if you're just trying to roadblock your opponent. And yeah, keep them cheap in 10 mans, make it where it's much harder to screen out a 10-man unit rather than a 20 if you decide to bring them back. But then the other way to keep these guys alive, I did take a Psychophage for that 6-up Feel No Pain. I've never played the Psychophage before. I look at it, it looks terrible. But that was when we had access to a 5-up Feel No Pain strat. Now that we don't have any other way to access Feel No Pain, and we are playing a horde of Griblies, meaning that you're rolling loads and loads of dice, a 17% durability increase is entirely relevant. I just don't know. The Psychophage wants to do the same thing the Tervigon is doing, hide right behind a wall and have the entire army be within 6 inches of it. And I don't think you can fit both a Psychophage and a Tervigon behind a wall reliably. at least not in my terrain. So I'm on the fence about the Psychophage, but the durability boost is relevant in a list such as this. So currently I have him. We'll have to see on the table if that actually works or not. And yeah, then just 11 Neurogaunts. These guys are just one more unit your opponent has to deal with for super cheap. The Neurogaunts are probably the unit that I just put in my backfield and screen out if I need to. Screen out Deep Strikers or anything of that sort. Otherwise, they can also just kind of fill in the gaps of all your stuff that's hiding behind the wall and ensure that your Synapse is being pushed forward. And finally, last 2 picks. So all of these strats are good. You want to use so many of these strats that I actually am going for both Hive Tyrants. You're taking a Walking Tyrant and you're taking the Swarmlord. You need the Swarmlord because you need that extra CP to be able to bring units back for 2 CP in your opponent's turn. And you want your Hive Tyrant to be able to use free strats for every other strat that you've got in this book. That's really expensive, and I have not found it worth it in any other list, but I think in this one it is. Plus, Swarmlord's Vect ability seems extra potent because if your opponent... I can't think off the top of my head what this strat would be, but if your opponent has one strat that helps them reliably deal with hordes, like a +1 attack strat or something of that nature, being able to Vect that and just say, no, you have to deal with me the hard way. Straight dice, no benefits. Incredibly strong in such a skew list. So that's my thoughts with bringing both of them. Again, normally I don't do this. Double stacking them seems pretty not worth it, especially for you're spending 500 points essentially on 2 models that are just there to get you CP. But I think this one is worth it because having those extra CP to ensure you can bring those full 20-man units back and still get to play your normal game plan. I mean, if Swarmlord brings back 2 full 20-man units because of those extra CP, he got his points back. Yeah, I just think it's worth it. Obviously, I'm conflicted about it, but I do think in this list it's worth it. So anyways, I blabbered a lot about how this list functions. Let's give you guys that rundown of what the list actually is. You've got a Hive Tyrant. You've got the Swarmlord. You have a Tervigon. Those are your 3 characters. You do have some extra points here. So I gave the Tervigon the Naturalized Camo enhancement, but we'll see how points changes. But Hive Tyrant, Tervigon, Swarmlord. 2 units of 10 Gargoyles, a 20-man unit of Hormagaunts, 6 units of 20 Termagaunts, 11 Neurogaunts, a Psychophage, and 2 units of 3 Venomthropes. The other interesting thing about this list is I think you play fixed. I don't know if normal Tyranids play fixed anymore because of the Biovore nerf, but I think in this one you can, and you definitely go for something like Cleanse, and then maybe either Teleport Homers or Engage. You have lots of quick chaff units that are going to be putting pressure on your opponent. You could go Storm Hostile Objective, but depends on if you think your opponent, how much they can score points if they just decide to not take any of the center objectives. So I think if in a mission where you are forced to take the center as your only source of primary, go ahead and take Storm Hostile Objective instead of Teleport Homers, and just take Storm Hostile and Cleanse, because that's your whole game plan anyways. You are fully planning on just throwing OC2 models in the midfield and saying your opponent gets no primary, and then you outscore the crap out of them. But yeah, I do think you take fixed. Notably, this list does not have Biovores to do Spore Mines or anything. I don't think you need it, because that's what your whole army is a bunch of action monkeys running around scoring points. You're not taking this army to deal damage. So, plus that's what the Gargoyles are for if, in fact, you, for some reason, need it. But yeah, I think you just go Cleanse and Secure Hostile, or Cleanse and deploy Teleport Homers, depending on what your opponent's list is and what the mission is. But let me know what you guys think. I've got so many list ideas that I want to try out, and obviously with having kids, I don't get to play a ton of games. But I'm hoping to play this at least once in Charity Hammer next week, and probably on the Teams event that we're doing. I think playing a Horde in a Teams format is exceptionally strong, so we'll see. But yeah, hoping to play that. Let me know what you guys think about the list, any tweaks you want to make, what other videos you want to see me do. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys in the next video where we'll probably be going over the Assimilation Swarm. See you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.